Hey, Mike here. I just wanted to let you know that you can listen to Dark Poutine early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime.
And we are back for another episode of Dark Poutine. I am Mike Brown in Langley, British Columbia.
And I am Matthew Stockton, looking over towards the Lion Gate Bridge that I can't see because of buildings.
You can't see the second Narrows because that's on the other side of the building.
From my window, I can see three bridges. I can see Cambie, I can see Burrard, and I can see Granville. Or why are we talking about bridges?
Well, let's get into that.
Okay.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during the Dark Poutine podcast are solely those of the producer and do not necessarily represent those of Curious Cast, its affiliate, Global News, nor their parent company, Chorus Entertainment.
Dark Poutine is not for the faint of heart or squeamish. Listener discretion is strongly advised. We're not experts on the topics we present, nor are we journalists. We're two ordinary Canadian schmucks chatting about crime and the dark side of history. Let's get to it. Put on your toque, grab yourself a double-double and a Nanaimo bar. It's time to scarf down some Dark Poutine.
You are responsible for obtaining and maintaining at your own cost all equipment needed to listen to Dark Poutine. Dark Poutine can be addictive. Side effects may include, but not be limited to, pausing and questioning the system, elevated heart rate, pondering humanity, odd looks from colleagues as you laugh out loud at work, family members not into true crime worrying about you. Positive side effects may include some perspectives and opinions that you disagree with, as well as some wokeness and empathy. If you don't think Dark Poutine is for you, consult your doctor immediately.
On June 17, 1958, a warm summer afternoon in Vancouver, British Columbia, the bustling construction site of the Second Narrows Bridge was alive with activity. 79 workers, including ironworkers, engineers, and painters, were perched high above the waters of Burrard Inlet, laboring to connect Vancouver to the North Shore. Little did they know that in mere moments their world would come crashing down in what would become the worst industrial disaster in Vancouver's history. Several bridge spans suddenly collapsed as they attempted to join two chords of the unfinished arch. The disaster sent all the bridge builders on shift, plummeting 30 meters into the waters below. Tragically, 18 workers lost their lives instantly or shortly thereafter, possibly due to drowning from their heavy tool belts. The death toll rose to 19 when a diver searching for bodies also drowned in the days following the collapse. A Royal Commission inquiry was called to determine the causes of the disaster. This is Dark Poutine episode 364, The Collapse of the Second Narrows Bridge, a Tragedy in Steel. Anyone who has driven in BC's Lower Mainland and regularly commutes by car between Vancouver and the North Shore has felt the frustration of traffic congestion. The two bridges, the Lions Gate and the Ironworkers Memorial Bridge at Second Narrows, are the only options.
This is why it's called the Ironworkers Memorial Bridge.
Bingo, Matthew!
I thought that was a weird name for a bridge, and I thought it was a general memorial to ironworkers around the world who had been hurt or lost their lives.
It is that as well.
Oh, is it as well? Okay, but I didn't realize there's something so specific that there was the original bridge collapsed while they're building it. I did not know that.
Yep.
Okay.
I mentioned that the Second Narrows and Lions Gate bridges are the only two options for driving between Vancouver and the North Shore, but that's not entirely true. There is a third option for crazy people with nothing but time on their hands. Picture this. You're in Vancouver, yearning to get to Honey's Donuts in Deep Cove on the North Shore, but those pesky bridges drive you bonkers. There's that darn traffic. There's always a bottleneck. So instead of waiting in traffic, let's take a route that you can probably keep moving on most of the time. Instead of a jaunt over a bridge, you can embark on an epic odyssey that would make Homer proud. Turn your chariot onto Highway 1 eastbound, waving goodbye to sanity and embracing the call of the open road. As you zoom past Hope, you might wonder if you've accidentally signed up for a grand tour of British Columbia. But press on, brave soul, for Lillooet awaits, a mere 358 kilometers and 4 hours and 15 minutes from your starting point. Here, you can grab a coffee, stretch your legs, and ponder the cosmic joke of your current predicament. But wait, there's more. Now that you've practically touched the province's interior, it's time to get moving again, back toward the coast. The sea-to-sky highway beckons, offering breathtaking views and ample time to question your life choices. Another 254 kilometers, or 3 hours and 54 minutes later, you'll finally roll into North Vancouver, having covered a loop of 612 kilometers in about 8 hours. Congratulations! You've transformed the average 20-minute bridge crossing into a day-long adventure spanning a good part of the province. As you finally reach your destination, take a moment to bask in the glory of your silly achievement. Enjoy that lovely donutty treat if Honey's is still open when you get there.
And that is if you can find a parking spot. Have you ever tried to park in Deep Cove in the summertime, Mike?
It's impossible.
Oh my God. Everyone's like all over the place.
You have to get there at 6 in the morning, yeah.
People who live there, I don't know, oh my God, all the tourists that come in, it would drive me bonkers.
Yeah, I wouldn't enjoy it. I spent a lot of time in Deep Cove because I lived right off Mount Seymour Parkway for the first year and a bit that I was here. So
Did you know that Deep Cove is where mountain bikes were invented?
I did not know that.
There you go.
So it looks like if we want to travel between the North Shore and Vancouver with our cars, we're stuck with these darn bridges. But they do come with some interesting and sometimes tragic history. The Second Narrows Bridge, now known as the Ironworkers Second Narrows Crossing, was a crucial infrastructure project designed to improve transportation links between Vancouver and the rapidly growing communities of North Vancouver and West Vancouver. The bridge was designed to replace the older Second Narrows Bridge that had become inadequate for the region's expanding population and economic needs. The project was undertaken by the Dominion Bridge Company, a well-established firm with a reputation for tackling complex engineering challenges. The company had previously constructed other notable bridges across Canada, including the Jacques Cartier Bridge in Montreal and the previously mentioned Lionsgate Bridge in Vancouver.
So these are big bridges. So for U.S. listeners, think of the Golden Gate Bridge sort of scale, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Big bridges.
Big.
The Dominion Bridge Company. I like the word Dominion. I grew up on Dominion Street.
Do you remember the Dominion store?
Yeah.
Dominion grocery store?
Absolutely.
I actually love Dominion grocery store.
Me too. I can picture the logo in my head right now. It was a smaller one in town. It was actually downtown where I grew up, back before you needed a new mortgage to be able to afford groceries.
Yeah. So the Lionsgate Bridge spans the Burrard Inlet at the First Narrows and connects the city's downtown to the North Shore. With its 473-meter main span, this elegant suspension bridge opened to traffic on November 14th, 1938, and was officially inaugurated by King George VI and his wife Queen Elizabeth on May 29th, 1939. Named after the Twin Peaks visible in the North Shore Mountains, the bridge's construction began on March 31st, 1937, driven by the vision of engineer Alfred James Toll Taylor. The Guinness Brewing family financed the project through British Pacific Properties, offering to pay for a bridge linking Vancouver to the North Shore during the challenging times of the Great Depression.
Did you know, of course you know this because you're in the business, but Lionsgate, the production company, see at the beginning of many films, is named after this bridge.
Yep.
Lionsgate was started here in Vancouver.
The studio was over there, is still over there in Brooksbank. I don't believe it's owned by Lionsgate anymore, but there's still
a studio there. Okay.
Yep, I've shot there. I've had to go pick things up there when I was working in the film business, all that kind of stuff. I've met producers there. It's really interesting. Yeah. Film's a big business here. Hopefully that continues. It's a billion-dollar industry here in BC, and a little concerned about the tariffs right now, but yeah. Anyway, the stunning Lions Gate Bridge's design, crafted by Montreal's Montserrat and Prattley, incorporated innovative construction techniques. Prefabricated strands were used for the suspension cables, improving efficiency and allowing all strands to be placed in just 16 days. Each main cable consists of 61 strands, each 3.65 centimeters thick, carefully hoisted into place over the tower saddles. At the southern entrance of the bridge, 2 proud lion statues, sculpted by Charles Marega, stand guard. These massive sculptures, each weighing 6.5 tons with an additional 2-ton head, conceal a few secrets. Workmen placed silver coins under their paws, and one lion reportedly contains a box of memorabilia, including someone's baby shoes. Over the years, the Lions Gate Bridge has witnessed its share of daring feats and modifications, and just a month after its opening, Oscar Erickson made a record-setting 200-foot jump from the bridge, quote, just for the devil of it. In 1986, lights were added to the bridge as a gift from the Guinness family during Expo 86, earning the nickname Gracie's Necklace. Quickly after it opened, in 1938, the Lions Gate Bridge reached its capacity. It was initially built to handle approximately 1 million vehicles a year, so it surpassed that rapidly. This overwhelming congestion at the first Narrows crossing highlighted the urgent need for an alternative route across Burrard Inlet. The federal government's ambitious plan to construct the Trans-Canada Highway increased the pressure, and the existing route through downtown Vancouver and Stanley Park via the Lions Gate Bridge was deemed unsuitable for this national project. Provincial authorities sought a bypass to alleviate downtown congestion, leading them to consider a crossing at the Second Narrows, about 8 kilometers east of the Lions Gate Bridge. The original Second Narrows Bridge, built in 1925, was no longer adequate for the burgeoning metropolis. With only 2 lanes and a central railway track, it had earned the nickname Bridge of Sighs, that's SIGS, due to frequent marine accidents and closures. The need for a more robust, efficient crossing became increasingly apparent as the region continued to expand. The provincial government initiated plans for a new bridge at Second Narrows in response to these pressing issues. The Second Narrows Bridge was to be the Dominion Bridge Company's crowning achievement in Western Canada, a testament to the region's growth and prosperity. Construction began on November 1957, and by June 1958, significant progress had been made, with workers laboring day and night. The design of the bridge was a steel truss cantilever structure engineered by Swan Wooster Engineering Company Limited. Spanning 1,292 meters across Burrard Inlet, the bridge featured a central span of 335 meters, making it the second longest cantilever span in Canada at the time. The deck-type configuration placed the roadway atop steel framework with large projecting arms, cantilevers, extending from each side and ultimately meeting in the middle. During construction, these cantilevered sections were temporarily supported by falsework, a system of supports and I-beams designed to bear the weight until the two halves connected. On that fateful day, June 17, 1958, the weather was clear and calm, with temperatures hovering around 20 degrees Celsius, that's 68 degrees Fahrenheit. The conditions were ideal for construction work, and the site was a hive of activity. Ironworkers were busy securing steel beams while engineers surveyed the progress and made calculations for the next phases of construction. Painters were on site applying protective coatings to the steel structure to guard against corrosion from the salty sea air. At approximately 3:40 p.m., as the workday was winding down, an ominous sound pierced the air. Gary Poirier, then an 18-year-old ironworker, recalled the moment with chilling clarity. Quote, "All of a sudden we heard a very sharp noise," end quote. In an instant, the right side of the bridge gave way, followed a split second later by the left side. Lucien Lessard, one of the survivors, vividly remembered the terrifying sequence of events in 2020. Quote, "I was lucky I didn't go down with the wreckage of steel. I fell directly off the side of the bridge, about 150 feet. I hit the water at extreme speed," Lessard recounted. The force of impact shattered his femur and broke his arm, yet somehow he survived. As the massive steel structure plummeted into the inlet, it created a scene of unimaginable chaos.
Can you imagine something that large collapsing? Just seeing it, but then being somebody on it. Like, seeing it would have been like shocking, but imagine you're on it and you're falling.
Yeah, it would be horrendous. Yeah. Like a really unexpected roller coaster ride.
Wow.
Well, Gary Poirier found himself submerged in murky waters, believing he was dead. "I wasn't hurt that bad," he later said, a statement that belied the broken leg, torn arm muscle, and black eye he'd sustained. The collapse was as swift as it was devastating. 2 spans of the bridge, each weighing hundreds of tons, came crashing down into Burrard Inlet. The momentum of the falling spans was so great that it dislocated the columns of Pier 14, causing an adjacent span to lose its grip and tumble into the water. In mere seconds, 79 workers were plunged into the cold waters below, many still attached to the framework, ironically, by their safety harnesses. For those on shore, the sight was horrifying. Eyewitnesses described seeing men shouting and pointing as workers struggled in the water amidst a tangle of twisted steel. According to the province newspaper, Ben Hallman, who was driving across the old bridge at the time, described the collapse as, quote, "a moment of horror." He witnessed the 2 sections of bridge crash into the inlet with 79 people plummeting into the water. The fast-running current swept away many of the workers not attached to the bridge itself through the narrows, while others were tragically pinned under and still attached to the bridge sections. The collapse was described as sudden and violent. Edward Leach, whose home overlooked the bridge, reported hearing, quote, "a tremendous roar like thunder." He saw the bridge toppling, pulling cement pilings out of line and causing adjacent sections to fall. Jack Drinkle, a toll booth attendant, heard 2 cracks followed by a thunderous sound as both sections fell together.
So much destruction so quickly. We're recording this, Mike, the week of the Myanmar earthquake, and we've all seen on the news that skyscraper collapsing in Thailand.
Terrifying.
And when you're talking about this, I was just sort of picturing that sort of size and scale, the drama of something so big falling like that.
Watching that building pancake in Asia reminded me of 9/11, frankly. It was horrible. Gary Poirier was one of the lucky ones. He was rescued by 2 doctors who had been fishing nearby, and they'd pulled him into his boat. Bill Stroud, a 30-year-old steel worker, attributed the collapse to, quote, "too much wind for the temporary framework," end quote. He described hearing a loud click before the bridge moved and then fell into the water. The community's response was immediate and heroic. Rescue efforts were quickly mobilized, with tugs and small boats battling against the strong current to save survivors. Doug Smith, a passerby, bravely waded into the narrows and rescued 2 men. Ed Olson, a maintenance foreman, along with colleagues Elmer Wiley and Albert Truitt, managed to rescue 3 men from the fast-running water. Dr. Michael Smith was one of the doctors who assisted with the rescue efforts. Years later, he recalled the chaotic scene. Quote, "We were out fishing when we heard this tremendous crash. We looked up and saw the bridge collapsing. Without hesitation, we headed straight for the site. The water was filled with debris and men struggling to stay afloat. We pulled as many as we could into our small boat, not knowing if they were alive or dead." End quote. Another eyewitness, Jack Birch, was working on a tugboat near the bridge when the collapse occurred. He described the moment. Quote, "It was like watching a slow-motion film. The bridge seemed to fold in on itself, and then there was this almighty splash as it hit the water. We immediately started pulling people out. Some were screaming, others were eerily quiet. It's a sound and sight I'll never forget." End quote.
You know, it's these disasters, like the one thing that always strikes me is how people come together, drop what they do to help other human beings.
Yeah.
Like instantly, like people don't even think about it. They just start going towards the danger to help people. And I think these disasters can show sort of the best of us, and sometimes, yeah.
And I mean, some people are trained to do that. Like when I trained as a junior fireman and a Boy Scout and all those kind of things, we were trained to go toward the people who are potentially injured.
My nephew is going to college in the autumn this year to become a firefighter.
Good for him.
Yeah.
While many made it out of the water, 18 men died almost instantly. The tragedy would claim one more life in the days that followed as a commercial diver named Keith Mott lost his life while attempting to recover bodies from the wreckage. The community rallied together with a fund for the widows and children of the victims, quickly reaching $35,100 by July 9, 1958, equivalent to nearly $400,000 today. The Royal Canadian Navy played a crucial role in the immediate rescue and recovery efforts. Lieutenant Commander Hugh Plant, who led the naval diving team, described the challenging conditions they faced. He said, "The visibility underwater was near zero. We were working by touch alone, trying to free bodies trapped in the wreckage. It was physically and emotionally exhausting work." As news of the disaster spread, the impact on the families of the victims was devastating. Christine Rzepka, daughter of survivor Lucien Lessard, recalled the lasting effect on her father. Quote, "Dad never talked about it. He wasn't ready to deal with it. He kept it separate." End quote. The silence of survivors like Lessard speaks volumes about the trauma they endured. Mary Conkin, whose husband Peter was one of the victims, shared her experience of that day. Quote, "I was at home with our 2 young children when I heard the news on the radio. I couldn't believe it. Peter had left for work that morning like any other day. Now I was being told he might never come home." End quote. The Conkin family's story was just one of many tales of sudden loss and grief that ripped through the community. The collapse of the Second Narrows Bridge sent shockwaves through members of the engineering profession and prompted immediate investigations. On June 25, 1958, a coroner's jury ruled that 15 of the 18 men killed in the bridge collapse died due to injuries or drowning. However, this was just the beginning of a long process to understand what had gone so terribly wrong. On July 9, 1958, Chief Justice Sherwood Lett of the British Columbia Supreme Court opened a Royal Commission investigation into the disaster. The Commission's findings would ultimately point to a series of critical errors and oversights in the bridge's design and construction. Alexander Hrenikov, a professor of engineering at the University of British Columbia, provided crucial testimony during the investigation. He stated that the vertical center supports lacked the necessary buckling strength, a fatal flaw that had gone unnoticed. Hrenikov's assessment was damning. Quote, "The successful outcome of those erections might have been construed as the vindication of the method of design." End quote. He added that he was surprised construction had progressed so far before the collapse occurred. Further investigation revealed the primary cause of the collapse was faulty engineering calculations on the temporary supports known as falsework. These calculations and designs were done by a young engineer named John McKibben and then missed by the engineer in charge, Murray MacDonald. Tragically, both men were on the bridge when it collapsed and lost their lives in the disaster. The American Society of Civil Engineers, ASCE, conducted an analysis in 2017, nearly 6 decades after the collapse. Their findings corroborated the initial investigations, concluding, quote, "The falsework was insufficient to support the spans, and the engineers had not properly checked the structural math." End quote. Larry Battuzzi, a senior engineer with WSP Canada Inc., summarized the ASCE's findings. Quote, "It was a combination of engineering mistakes, flawed material and procedures, and inappropriate safety standards that resulted in the failure." End quote. More after a quick break. And we are back. Matthew, thoughts?
You know, we were talking in the beginning of the show how I can see 3 bridges from my window. Mm-hmm. And because of the nature of British Columbia being on the coast with all the inlets and everything, there's so many bridges that so many people travel over every single day. Yeah. And I often think when I'm on one of the big ones, especially, like, what would happen if... Right? And it doesn't help that I watch movies like Final Destination 5, where beginning of that, where the film, the bridge is collapsing, that's actually the Lionsgate Bridge.
Yes.
So like being sort of like thinking about it all the time anyway, and then watching a movie like that isn't very helpful.
No. Those movies are stinkers, really.
Oh, but I love them. They're so bad that I love them.
I guess they're fun to watch.
It's a Final Destination film, so you know it's going to be cheese, but you love it anyway, right?
I guess so. The collapse of the Second Narrows Bridge had far-reaching consequences not only for the families directly affected, but for the entire field of civil engineering and construction safety. The disaster led to significant changes in safety protocols and engineering practices, serving as a grim reminder of the importance of rigorous checks and balances in large-scale construction projects. One of the key changes implemented in the wake of the disaster was the introduction of more stringent safety regulations for bridge construction. The Workmen's Compensation Board of British Columbia, now known as WorkSafe BC, revised its safety standards, mandating more frequent inspections and stricter enforcement of safety protocols on construction sites. Dr. Robert Sexsmith, a professor of civil engineering at UBC, explained the impact of the disaster on the engineering profession. Quote, "The Second Narrows Bridge collapse was a wake-up call for the entire industry. It highlighted the need for more rigorous peer review processes and the importance of considering all possible failure modes in structural design." End quote. The legacy of the Second Narrows Bridge collapse continues to resonate in Vancouver and beyond. In 1994, the bridge was officially renamed the Ironworkers Memorial Second Narrows Crossing, to honor those who had lost their lives in the collapse, along with 4 others who lost their lives during the construction process. The renaming ceremony was an emotional event attended by survivors, families of the victims, and community members. Survivor Lucien Lessard spoke at the ceremony. Quote, "The bridge stands as a testament to the skill and bravery of ironworkers everywhere. But more than that, it's a memorial to those who gave their lives building it. We must never forget their sacrifice." End quote. Each year, a memorial service is held at the south side of the Ironworkers Memorial Bridge, drawing hundreds of people to pay their respects to those who lost their lives. The event serves as a solemn reminder of the risks faced by construction workers and the importance of workplace safety.
I've been here for 10 years, Mike, in Vancouver, and I didn't know that. And now that we're doing this show, I think maybe I'll go next time there's a service.
I don't know when it will be this year, but according to the IBEW, that's the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and their chapter is 213 here in Vancouver, last year it was held on Monday, June 17th at 1 p.m. at New Brighton Park. So keep your eyes peeled and your ears open for the date of this year's. I assume it will be around the same time. Doug Parton, business manager of Ironworkers Local 97, helped to organize the annual memorial for years. He explained the event's significance. Quote, "It's not just about remembering those we lost, it's about reminding current and future generations of ironworkers about the importance of safety." End quote. For the survivors, the memory of that day remained vivid even decades later. Speaking at a memorial event 60 years after the collapse, Gary Poirier reflected on the moment he realized he'd survived. Despite his injuries and the psychological trauma of the event, he returned to ironwork after recovering. Quote, "It was all I knew," he said. "But every time I stepped onto a high structure after that, I couldn't help but think about what happened that day." End quote. Lucien Lessard, who at 91 years old in 2020 was the last living survivor of the disaster, continued to honor his fallen comrades year after year. Despite the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, Lessard was determined to attend the annual commemoration ceremony. His daughter, Christina Rezepka, noted the change in her father over the years. Quote, "After we started to come to the memorial, he started to open up a lot more about what happened then. We've learned a lot more in the last 10 years than we ever knew growing up." End quote. Lessard's story is particularly poignant. He not only survived the collapse, but went on to work on the completion of that very same bridge. Quote, "It was hard going back," he admitted in a rare interview, "but I felt I owed it to my friends who didn't make it. We had to finish what we started." End quote. Jean Lesage, another ironworker who narrowly avoided being on the bridge that day due to a last-minute decision to go scuba diving, carried the weight of his near miss for years. His son, Jason Lesage, recounted his father's experience. Quote, "It's something that happens that makes a mark in your life. He has often remarked about that." End quote. Jason Lesage elaborated on his father's story. Quote, "Dad had switched shifts with a friend that day. He found out about the collapse when he came up from his dive. The guilt of surviving when his friend didn't stayed with him for years. It changed him, made him more cautious, more appreciative of life." End quote. The tragedy has been memorialized in various forms of popular culture, ensuring that the sacrifice of these workers was not forgotten. Stompin' Tom Connors, a Canadian country and folk singer, one of Matthew's favorites, paid musical tribute to the fallen ironworkers with his song, "The Bridge Came Tumbling Down," on his 1972 album, My Stompin' Grounds. The lyrics poignantly capture the human cost of the disaster. Quote, 19 men were drowned in June of 1958 in old Vancouver town. There were 79 men working to build this brand new bridge to span the Second Narrows and connect up with the ridge.
Stompin' Tom, we talked about him recently in
Yes.
the episode of the bank heist, his song Tilsonburg.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
True Canadian icon.
I love Stompin' Tom.
He's the best. Was the best.
I don't know if this is mythological or not, but he would have plywood on stage with him and he would stomp during each concert and allegedly would stomp through a 1-inch plywood board every concert.
Allegedly.
Like I said, that's probably mythological, but he did a lot of stomping. Whatever, it's kind of fun. Stompin' Tom was known for his songs about Canadian history and culture and deeply moved by the story of the bridge collapse. In an interview, he once said, quote, "I write about the things that matter to Canadians, and the Second Narrows disaster is part of our history that shouldn't be forgotten. Those men were heroes, every one of them." End quote. Jimmy Dean's 1962 song Steel Men also stands as a ballad commemorating the Second Narrows Bridge disaster. These musical tributes have helped to keep the memory of the tragedy alive in the public consciousness, ensuring that the sacrifices made by the workers aren't forgotten. In the realm of literature, Gary Geddes' 2007 book of poetry, entitled False Work, is based on the collapse of the bridge. Geddes' work provides a poetic exploration of the disaster, offering a different perspective on the human impact of the tragedy. Geddes, in an interview about the book, explained his motivation, quote, "I wanted to give voice to those who couldn't speak for themselves anymore. The men who died, their families, even the bridge itself. Poetry has a way of touching the emotional core of an event that straight reportage sometimes misses." End quote. I agree, Mr. Geddes.
Canadians do love tragedy songs.
Yeah.
Like think of that song, the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably so many more that I just can't name right
You're
now.
correct. Yep.
Yeah,
Tragically Hip did some. Yep.
Even their name, Tragically, is in the name.
Yep. Spirit of the West.
Yeah.
You know?
There you go.
Yeah. Canadian culture is rife with stories like this. I mean, this is why Dark Poutine exists. The commemoration of tragedy in Canadian culture often serves as both a warning and a lesson. Through them, Canadians are reminded that ethical progress is neither simple nor complete, and it's my belief that active engagement with history is necessary for genuine social change. Telling these stories, crime-related or not, exposes uncomfortable truths about the nation's past and present, encourages critical reflection and challenges uncritical nationalism, fosters empathy and understanding across communities, supports the process of reconciliation, especially with Indigenous peoples, and ensures the lessons of history are neither forgotten nor repeated. I think our success as a nation, our identity, is shaped not just by our triumphs, but also by our willingness to confront and learn from our tragedies and mistakes. Sorry to go a little meta there. The collapse of the Second Narrows Bridge stands as a stark reminder of the potential consequences of engineering failures and the paramount importance of safety in construction. It serves as a case study for engineering students and professionals alike, emphasizing the need for rigorous calculations through checks and a culture of safety in all aspects of design and construction. Dr. Nemkumar Banthia, a professor of civil engineering at UBC, uses the Second Narrows disaster as a teaching tool in his classes. Quote, It's a powerful example of how small errors can compound into catastrophic failures, he explains. We analyze every aspect of the collapse, from the initial design flaws to the oversight and checking calculations. It's a lesson that every aspiring engineer needs to learn, end quote. The disaster also led to advancements in bridge design and construction techniques. Engineers began to place greater emphasis on redundancy in structural systems, ensuring that failure of a single component wouldn't lead to a total collapse. The use of computer modeling and simulation in structural engineering, which was in its infancy in the 1950s, became more widespread and sophisticated in the wake of disasters like the Second Narrows collapse. As Vancouver continues to grow and evolve, the Ironworkers Memorial Second Narrows Crossing stands as testament to human resilience and a memorial to those who paid the ultimate price in the pursuit of progress. The bridge, completed in 1960 and still in use today, I've driven over it many, many times, is a daily reminder of the tragedy that occurred during its construction and the lessons learned from that fateful day in June 1958. The completion of the bridge in 1960 was a bittersweet moment for the community. While it represented the fulfillment of the original vision to improve transportation links in the region, it was also a somber reminder of the human cost of that achievement. The opening ceremony was a subdued affair, with officials and workers alike paying tribute to those who had lost their lives. The bridge that opened on August 25, 1960 has undergone several changes and improvements over the decades. Today, the Ironworkers Memorial Second Narrows Crossing remains a crucial part of the Trans-Canada Highway, Highway 1, carrying an average of 121,778 vehicles daily as of 2021. Although this was probably the widest known bridge collapse in Canada, the collapse at Second Narrows was not the first, nor was it the deadliest. The Point Ellis bridge disaster in Victoria, BC claimed even more lives. On May 26, 1896, what began as a joyous celebration of Queen Victoria's 76th birthday turned into a day of mourning and devastation. As the city bustled with excitement, Consolidated Electric Railway Company's number 16 streetcar, packed beyond capacity with 143 passengers, embarked on its ill-fated journey to Esquimalt. The car, designed to carry only 60 people, was severely overloaded as it approached the Point Ellis Bridge. Just before 2 p.m., disaster struck as the streetcar reached the bridge's middle span. Witnesses reported an ominous sound that signaled impending doom. The Daily Times recounted the horrific moment. Quote, "An ominous sound was heard that told of something giving way, and soon the middle span of the bridge, about 150 feet in length, swerved toward the gorge, the car sliding in the same direction." End quote. In a matter of seconds, the bridge gave way, plunging the streetcar and its passengers into the cold waters of the upper harbor. The scene that unfolded was one of unimaginable horror. The Daily Colonist vividly described the catastrophe. Quote, "The crashing timbers and ironwork of the bridge piled upon the ill-fated car as the waters received it, and doubling up, pierced it also from below, so that many were killed before the water was even reached, while the others were less mercifully held below the muddy waters." End quote. The high tide and strong current which complicated rescue efforts compounded the tragedy. Some members managed to grab onto floating debris or swim to safety, but many remained trapped in the submerged streetcar. Boats rushed to the scene and the fire department quickly arrived. Nearby residents, like Captain Grant, opened their homes to receive the injured and the deceased. The Daily Colonist reported on the selfless acts of bystanders. Quote, "It was wonderful how coolly and energetically men and women worked. Class distinctions and all were forgotten." End quote. Despite these valiant efforts, the toll was devastating. Initially, 47 bodies were recovered, but as search efforts continued, the number of fatalities rose to 55. The disaster touched nearly every Victoria household and affected neighboring towns across Puget Sound. Peter O'Reilly, owner of Port Ellis House, captured the somber mood in his diary entry. Quote, "Very bright sunshine, but a day of mourning." End quote. In the aftermath of the tragedy, a coroner's jury convened to determine the cause and responsibility for the disaster. On June 12, 1896, they concluded that multiple factors contributed to the catastrophe. The Consolidated Electric Railway Company was found responsible for overloading the streetcar beyond the bridge's design capacity. The Victoria City Council deemed guilty of contributory negligence for poor bridge maintenance and failure to restrict traffic to safe limits. The bridge's design and construction also came under scrutiny. Engineering News reported on the bridge's specifications, noting that it was built in 1885 by the San Francisco Bridge Company. The structure consisted of 2 120-foot deck spans and 2 150-foot through spans with a short trestle approach. The Consolidated Electric Railway Company, which ran the city streetcars, was forced into receivership and later reorganized as the British Columbia Electric Railway on April 15, 1897. The tragedy sparked broader discussion about safety standards and engineering practices. Engineering News emphasized the importance of responsible design, stating, quote, "It is not the bridge building companies who are to blame for this dangerous economy in laying down live loads for structures. Those who are to blame are the designers of structures and those who employ them and insist on trivial economy at the expense of safety." End quote. It's always about money, folks. In June, we'll see the 67th anniversary of the Second Narrows collapse. The bridge continues to bear silent witness to the ebb and flow of daily life. Each vehicle that crosses its span is a testament to the ironworkers' legacy and their strength forever forged into the steel that supports us. So the next time you find yourself stuck in traffic on the Ironworkers Memorial Bridge, take a moment to look out over the waters of Burrard Inlet. Remember the men who fell that day and consider how their sacrifice made your journey possible. And that's it for Dark Poutine episode 364, The Collapse of the Second Narrows Bridge, a Tragedy in Steel.
That's right. It's time for voicemails. You can leave us a message at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you. Let's see who called us this week.
We do have a voicemail for this episode, so let's have a listen to this one. It seems like it might go a bit.
Hey guys, I love your shows, and one thing that I found kind of interesting, like take this as just an interesting random comment. Some of the cases, it's like there's injustice when someone's wrongfully convicted or this and that, and there's a lot of cool, like philosophical, like back and forth, and that's very suspenseful. But I think it's funny, like to me when I think about it, like these two guys, like no matter which of them did the crime, I don't really want any of them in my neighborhood if they can't even tell the truth about a murder. You know what I mean? Specifically, and this has been in a couple episodes, not to mention, like, it seems like they're all kind of doing drugs sometimes in their youth, which I get it, it's just in their youth, but still, I think we need to take the substance issue a little more seriously. But specifically, I've heard this in a couple episodes, but I'm talking about episode 254, the lack of justice in the murder of Bridget Grenier. And so I just wanted to say, here's another funny comment. If I was wrongfully convicted, I would take the hit just to make my neighborhood more safe. Like I'd stay in jail for 5, 10, 15 years just to ensure that our justice system at least gets someone in jail for a little bit. Because when you have this guy that's willing to admit to murder just to look cool to a gang that is actually undercover police, like I don't want anybody that's willing to commit to murder in my neighborhood, whether or not he murders. Like if he's willing to admit it just to be cool, who's to say that he won't become a murderer even if he wasn't before? Anyways, I just think it's kind of funny. Just thought I'd call in discuss this philosophical concept with you guys. Have fun and take a shit in your tea.
Well, thank you. Interesting. That's a different take that I've ever sort of considered. What are your thoughts, Matthew?
I wonder if he will willing to be a fall guy for hire to take the hit.
Take the hit.
Make some money.
Well, hey, you know what? Yeah, that's interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, I thought he was going to go on a different route there.
Yeah.
And because I thought what he was going to talk about was, I was maybe hearing it wrong, but I thought he was going to talk about people doing their time. He mentioned like, I don't want that person in my neighborhood, and I was thinking, even if somebody is jailed and does their time, it doesn't mean we have to accept them as or trust them as, okay, you did your time, I'm going to trust you now. I thought that it was going to be that conversation. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, even if somebody's done their time, I wouldn't want them living next door to me.
If I'm wrongfully convicted and it is discovered that I'm wrongfully convicted, I'm out of there as soon as I can possibly get it. I am.
Absolutely.
You will hear the sound of a ricochet bullet and see a Michael-sized hole in the side of the wall like Wile E. Coyote. Yeah, like I'm out of here, folks. Because, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't just take the hit.
No. Definitely not.
I like my freedom. Unless, if you're living on the street or, you want 3 hots and a cot, you need some place to live and some place to take care of. No, I'm not going to get into that.
It's sort of like Mike. It's sort of like I'm watching Breaking Bad.
Okay.
And I'm at like the first part of the first year, and the Better Call Saul. Saul knows a guy.
Saul Goodman. Yeah.
I know.
Saul Goodman.
He knows a guy that's been. He's a professional. He's professional at saying he's guilty for stuff he doesn't do, and he spent all of his life in jail because that he only knows it. So he takes the hit at in the show, and I was watching it thinking, wow, that's interesting. He got paid like $20,000 to do it or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think.
Have you watched Better? Have you watched Better Call Saul?
I have. Yeah,
Is it good?
Yeah.
Because I want to get through Breaking Bad before I watch Better Call Saul.
Because there's callbacks that you wouldn't get. You wouldn't appreciate as much because you haven't seen Breaking Bad. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any other callers?
Nope. That's it.
Okay.
That's it for this week.
That's it for this week's voicemails. Again, you can leave us one at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you, even if it is just to say hi and to tell us to go shit in our hats. If you're stumped for what to chat with us about, a quick story is welcome.
And we don't have any donut money donors or PayPal.
You should just call them donut donors.
Donut donors. Oh, boy.
Imagine if people actually just mailed us donuts. Donut donors.
That's partially why I don't publish my address. Because I don't want rotten food products.
Squished in envelopes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it would be good. I really don't. Anyway. Thanks to all our patrons and Donut Money donors, past and present, for your generosity. It helps to keep the show going. You can become a patron of Dark Poutine at patreon.com/darkpoutine. For a one-time donation, you can send us donut money via PayPal or interact using our email address, darkpoutine@gmail.com. If you don't already subscribe to the show, it would mean a lot if you did. You can easily find Dark Poutine on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you haven't gotten yours yet, my 2 books are available to order via links on the Dark Poutine website or anywhere fine books are sold. And speaking of darkpoutine.com, check it out for show notes and other cool stuff. We'd appreciate it if you gave Dark Poutine a like or a follow on Facebook and Instagram. Most importantly, thank you for listening. Tell your friends about us. Word of mouth is a powerful thing. And that's it for this episode of Dark Poutine. So until next time, don't forget to be a good egg and not a bad apple.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.